Welcome to the Year of the Movie podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from the year of the movie 2023. I'm Sebastian.
I'm Maggie.
And together we make
Movies.
And
podcast episodes about movies.
Podcasts about movies.
Such as this one.
Yeah. But why?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. 2023 is a weird year for movies.
Goofy.
Extremely goofy, some might say.
Mm-hmm.
There were writers' strikes and actors' strikes and other industries that were having a bad time this year.
Yep.
And partly related, unrelated to that, just a bunch of it was just cinema's back, baby. And it made weird movies all at the same time, and they all came out this year, such as 65, 80 for Brady, Barbie, Air, Big George Foreman, Chupa, all Fast X,
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
It's a weird year.
Mm-hmm.
So today's episode is about the movie Paint.
It's one of those movies.
It's one of those movies that is on this list that came out in 2023.
Yeah.
Synopsis for Paint is: Carl Nargle, a local treasure with a soothing whisper of a voice, hosts his own painting show on Vermont Public Television. His art has attracted the attention of many women over the years, especially those who work at the station. However, when a new painter gets hired to revitalize the channel, Carl's own fears regarding his talents as an artist are brought to the forefront.
It's a long synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
What were your first impressions when you heard about this movie?
I was really excited. It's Owen Wilson playing basically Bob Ross. That's like that's what the trailer gave off to me.
Yeah.
And I was excited to see that. I like Bob Ross and I like Owen Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did not watch the trailer for this movie until today. But yeah, that was basically, I just saw images for the movie, and it was that like that photo effect of like a person is here and then their face is up in the corner too, like very, very old school promo style stuff.
Yeah.
They were really going for a specific vision, and the movie has a specific vision.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought this was gonna be like, this one was one of the movies that I was like, oh yeah, we probably should make a podcast about this year specifically.
Yeah.
So and then we did.
We will talk about the trailer now, because we always talk about the trailer. For numerous reasons. One reason is we can't legally show the trailer. Also, wouldn't be fun for the audio viewers.
Yep.
And so we talk about the trailer, kind of break that down, give us, some non-spoiler things to talk about. And then if the trailer is, sounds interesting to you, then you can go check the movie out and then finish watching this podcast.
Yeah. So you did watch the trailer when it came out?
I think I watched like a teaser trailer.
Okay.
But I guess we'll see, if based off of this description, if I remember this.
This is the official trailer.
Yeah.
So it's like 2.5 minutes or something.
I don't think I watched that.
Yeah.
I feel like I watched maybe a minute.
Yeah.
I think it's my turn.
Sure.
Okay. A man, Carl Nargle, paints broad strokes of blue on a canvas, saying, "Our goal is pretty simple." Music kicks in over the IFC Films logo. The man continues, "I want to help you get what's in here and just splash it onto there." We see he's painting a forest on a canvas on TV, and a group of senior citizens watch together, smiling. He continues, "Don't worry, it's not rocket science." And there's another shot of a woman painting while watching the show. The man turns around and says, "It's harder." He smiles, then it cuts to a full-screen graphic reading, "The World," before showing Carl on set talking to the camera as several women look on. He says, "Thanks for going to a special place with me." Then another full screen saying, "Was his canvas." Back to Carl speaking to camera, standing next to his completed painting, whispering his own name, Carl Nargle. The women/crew looking on, all sighs. The director calls, "Cut it." Carl walks off set saying, "That tree is probably too tall. You're probably going to get some calls about that." The cheerful music continues over a shot of a small town. It cuts again to a view looking out from inside a van, with people waving and saying Carl Nargle's name. Carl waves back, and a woman says, "Mr. Nargle, it's an honor to meet you, sir." We see a woman, Ambrosia, introducing herself on set. Carl turns around and says, "Wait, what's going on?" And we see a TV graphic that says "Paint with Ambrosia," then showing Ambrosia introducing herself on the show. Carl and the other women/crew watch, one of them, Beverly, saying it takes paint to a whole new place, and it's been to a lot of places, as she eyes Carl up and down. Carl quietly says, "Good night, everyone," and walks away. There's a beat of silence before one of the other women, Wendy, says, "I've never seen him that mad." The screen cuts to black, coming back up with different 70s music playing, and Carl revealing a painting to a young woman, Jenna. She seems odd and asks Carl, "Does this mean I'm your muse?" We see Carl and Jenna on a bed together, getting closer with another woman, Catherine's voiceover, "Don't let that fame bring out the worst in you." Carl seemingly responds to her, "A real man never looks back." And there's a snapshot sound effect as we see Carl with fans signing autographs, and then the crew taking care of Ambrosia on set. Cut to Carl in the station manager Tony's office, asking, "Are these the new tote bags?" holding up a design with Ambrosia's face on it. Tony says, "It's only because yours weren't selling." And there's another shot of Tony leading Carl away from set. Carl's voiceover says, "I'm an artist instead of a woman who says really mean things to other women," holding a box of his stuff by his van. Ambrosia responds to him, "You were an artist." There's a hectic shot of Carl throwing paint, then revealing he's destroying a wall of his own paintings. Another full screen, "Life's a picture." Then the screen shows a roadside pointing towards an art museum with Jenna's voiceover, "A real artist follows his heart." It cuts to black, coming back up on Jenna, telling Carl, "My Uber is here," and he responds, "I don't know what that is." Tony and the rest of the crew watch a show behind video monitors showing Carl as Jenna's voice responds, "It's goodbye." Another full screen saying he couldn't paint. A woman asks Carl, "How's everything going?" And he replies, "Awesome," as we see he's slowly painting an entire canvas black. Carl walks through an art museum up to a blank wall looking excited. A man's voiceover asks, "What's the image tucked away in your brain that makes your heart ache?" And there are quick flashes of Carl showing a painting on set, Wendy slamming a table, and Carl sitting down at a barbershop. We see Carl's studio on fire as the voiceover continues, and your soul feels like it's going to burst. And Catherine looks at something in Carl's van, smiling. More quick shots of Carl with Tony, a paint can being opened, Ambrosia stepping back from a canvas, the van driving down a road, Ambrosia in a car with a woman, an excited PBS host Denny Dillon, Carl's face, Carl and Catherine in bed together, then Carl yelling and throwing paint against the studio wall again. The image briefly cuts to black, coming back up on Carl looking up with paint all over his hair. His voiceover says, "Carl is one-dimensional and very sexist." And we see he's reading a newspaper review with Catherine. He calmly tells her, "You know I don't care what people say about me," before hard cutting to him in his van, stopping at every house on the street and stealing their newspapers. A woman on the phone watches in confusion as Carl steals her paper. We see him drive away with the license plate, Paint R, then the movie title graphic, Paint, comes on screen. A phone rings and we come back to Wendy answering phones saying PBS Burlington, and a woman's voice on the line says, "Carl stole my newspaper?" Wendy responds, "Yes, we're aware that Carl is stealing newspapers. Please hold," before cutting to graphics with the film information.
It's obviously a Bob Ross spoof.
Yeah. This is another one where the trailer gives away
So much.
so much.
Yeah. Which makes me think this is not the one that you watched at first. Yeah, there's just the part where it's just like boom, 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 and it's shot after shot after shot. Yeah, it really sets up the story to be a artist struggling with his identity and also aging out of a demographic.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of interesting imagery. It's obviously supposed to make you think of a specific time period, like vaguely 70s, 80s. And then the font choice is also 70s inspired. The one thing that goes against all of that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, is when Jenna says, "My Uber is here."
Yeah, I mean, I thought I gave it 90s.
Yeah, that's true.
Just, I mean, there were old computers
Yeah.
at the PBS station and all the stuff.
Yeah.
But
the director did specifically say in interviews that this takes place in the 2020s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, sort of a stab at PBS. That's nice.
Yeah. And then this, like we just mentioned, it gives away a lot of the climactic imagery of the movie. Not necessarily the context for that imagery, but like Carl with the paint in his hair is supposed to be like a big moment.
Yeah.
The studio being on fire is a pretty big moment.
Yep.
And both of those, if you see the trailer, then like you're kind of expecting that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes away from those moments, I think. I think there's a way that you can make a trailer, try and get people interested in your movie, show that like stuff obviously happens without showing like the explicit stuff that happens in the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah. Cast?
Cast. I mean, it had a good cast.
It's a good cast.
Owen Wilson obviously is Carl Nargle.
Mm-hmm.
Michaela Watkins is Catherine. Wendy McLendon Covey is Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
Sierra
Sierra Renee
is Ambrosia. Lucy Fryer is Jenna. Lucia maybe Struss
Yeah.
is Beverly. Stephen Root is Tony. Michael Pemberton is Dr. Bradford Linehan. Denny Dillon is Denny Dillon. Yeah, I mean, so it's a good cast. I knew a good chunk of the people in here just from various things. I mean, I think Owen Wilson and Stephen Root are probably the biggest.
They're the biggest. I would say I recognize Wendy from Meet the Goldbergs. That's like one of her bigger things that she's done.
I recognize Michaela Watkins. She's in so many things.
Yeah, I was about to look at her.
I think there's a recent show called The Unicorn. I think that she is in, and that has Walton Goggins and Rob Corddry and some other people.
Gotcha.
And that was really good.
It says she's known for Wanderlust, The Backup Plan, Thanks for Sharing, and In a World.
Yeah, she's someone that if you see her face, then you're like, oh yeah.
The Dropout.
Her.
I kind of watched that. Yeah. I really liked Lucy Freyer. I really thought I recognized her, but this is her first like credit besides like two other little things. So if I do recognize her, I have no idea what it's from.
Yeah.
Maybe she also kind of reminds me of a girl I went to middle school with, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I think it's a really strong cast.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is pretty good at the roles that they're in. Yeah.
Yep.
So probably spoilers,
yeah. It just things happen in this movie for sure. It's I'm gonna say it. I didn't love the movie.
What? Yeah, I didn't either.
It had potential. I mean, I'm a Bob Ross fan.
Yes.
And I think this, I don't know, it was not enough of a spoof.
I have many thoughts on the Bob Ross angle.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get to them later on. I have a thing about Bob Ross's legacy. I should say right now, like, I might have to actually, I don't know if I legally have to say it, but I'm encouraged to say it, that I am a current PBS employee. I do not speak for PBS. I'm not paid for my opinions, all that good stuff.
I used to work for PBS, so I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
I like PBS. I'm a big fan. I support PBS.
Yeah.
So you should support your local public broadcasting station.
Yeah, I can say that. Yeah. Yeah, even if I didn't currently work for PBS, I would still be a big PBS. Like, I was a PBS kid, you know, growing up. Like, we didn't have cable. We had antenna TV. I remember watching Bob Ross a decent amount growing up, not always being interested in him, but like, I respect the legacy.
Yeah, and so like this movie is so very loosely based off of Bob Ross.
Yes.
I think the most that it's based off of is appearance,
aesthetically,
how he talks,
yes,
and what he does on his show.
Yes.
And that is it.
Yes, and that's, I think, very intentional.
Yeah.
Whether, like, I think it's very intentional, but I don't know if the director realized it was intentional. I think based on stuff that he has said. So yeah, plot points, things just kind of happen. So this movie, I think the tone is really weird, and that's one of the issues that I have. Is like starting out, I really wanted to like this movie. The initial intro lost me a little bit. So it starts out with like, it's kind of an episode of Paint. That's like the show that, and the movie title. Wow.
Yeah.
And it starts out with like his narration, and he's talking through a painting and the way that Bob Ross does. He never says like happy little accidents or anything like that. His catchphrase is always like, go to a special place with me.
Yeah.
And it keeps changing between being like watching him paint, seeing it on a monitor, watching people watch a monitor, and then shooting him like he's actually in the forest and he's speaking directly to the camera.
Yeah, and then
it was too jarring when it went to there for me.
And then they never go back to that.
That's why I thought it was so jarring. It's like,
yeah.
I thought this was going to be like semi-realism of like you're in the paintings sometimes, and they never attempt that again.
It's like once they do that, and then like you would maybe think that with the new painter they would go into hers, because like her paintings,
it's a completely different style.
Her paintings are wild. There's like a UFO and tons of blood, and so it's like, oh, okay, like let's see like this in the, and like I don't know if like they wanted to, but the budget was too low or what, but it was just like doing it once. They don't do it at the end for like a wrap it up in a bow type of thing.
They could have bookended it with him, like, because they kind of do in the stuff that he's talking about, because he's specifically talking about a like blackberry bush. And he has like a name for the bush. He's like Miss Maisie or something like that. Yeah, and so like at the end, then he's talking to a blackberry bush again. Yeah. So, but
it's real this time. I guess I don't get, because he's like successful with life now.
Yeah, he's happy or whatever.
Yeah.
So the kind of theme through it is like Carl has a successful show, but he has a kind of unsuccessful personal life. Basically, he started getting famous with paint. He was dating Catherine at the time, and then she cheated on him because, and like this is stuff that you find out like sprinkled throughout the movie. It's not laid out all at once. She cheated on him because she felt neglected in their relationship, regretted it immediately, told him, and then basically his like personal life just kind of stagnated right there.
Yeah.
And he's like, I feel like it's implied that like stylistically, like in the way that he dresses and everything, that he just stopped. Like he has always stayed in that time period. There's a bug right in front of me. And then ever since then he's just kind of like slowly been making his way through the women that work at the PBS station. And like he's never like in a satisfying relationship. He's always like trying to basically replace Catherine. He's always painting the same thing over and over again.
It's a mountain.
It's a specific mountain.
Because someone at the art museum local to them was like, there's not a good painting of this mountain, and he thought that he could prove that he was a good painter by painting this mountain good enough to get in the art museum.
Yeah.
So he only ever painted that mountain
in the hopes that that's Dr. Bradford Linehan, in the hopes that Dr. Bradford would watch the show and be like, that's it, that's the one, let's put it in the museum. And then Carl like never really like puts himself out there of like,
no, he never tries or steps out.
Yeah, he basically painted this mountain for 19 years, and then like also never contacted that guy in the first place to try and get one of his paintings in the museum, because he mentions it to Jenna, who is like his current muse at the time that the movie takes place, and she's like, why would you never even try? And he's like, what if he says no? But that's like the only scene between them where you get of Carl being like self-conscious about his art level, of like having commercial success versus critical success. It's not really a theme that the movie goes back to.
Nah, this movie is like,
It tries to do a bunch of stuff.
but then it doesn't like. It's. I mean, this movie is like what they make Carl, in that like, it's like, oh, that could be cool, that could be
Mhm.
cool, but I'm not gonna go for it. I'm never
Yeah.
gonna go for it. I'm never gonna do anything. I'm just gonna show like the little basic things,
Yeah.
and then they sprinkle in weird gags that just like tonally don't fit
Yeah.
because so much of this movie is depressing, and
Yeah.
like not in a way that's like makes you like, it's not depressing in a way where you want to watch it. It's just like, this is
It was
it's
a bummer
sad.
to watch.
Yeah, and it was kind of boring. It was slow.
It was really
Things just happened. There weren't
Yeah.
really any like actual consequences.
like the movie ended and we just kind of sat there for a second and was like, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
And then we put on a different movie that we'll talk about later, I imagine. But yeah, so things just kind of happen. He doesn't really go for anything. I think like I guess the through line with the other stuff is like Carl hates change. He's very, I wouldn't say comfortable, but he's at terms with like where he is right now. And the station is not doing well. Support your local PBS station. And they're trying to think of things to boost the station financially. And like Catherine is also about to leave the station for a bigger job
In Albany.
So she's like trying to get the station like stable before she can leave, because Tony is the station manager, but Catherine's really the one that's running stuff.
Yeah, which is, you know,
That happens.
happens.
Yeah. So Tony tells Carl, Catherine had an idea. We should have paint on for 2 hours instead of 1. And then you can do 2 paintings, double the Carl Nargle, double the donations, theoretically. Carl just kind of says like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
He's basically like, I don't know if I want to put out double the paintings, and like what if people won't take me as seriously if they just see me like chugging out twice as much art,
Yeah.
and they won't value it as much. But then he's like, let me know if I can do anything, and then leaves. So then they bring on Ambrosia, and that's why they're not straight up replacing Carl in the first place in the way the trailer makes it seem like.
They just needed more.
They needed someone else.
Yeah. And then Ambrosia comes on, does something completely different, and creates
Yeah.
2 paintings in 1 hour.
So that's when Beverly is like, she's taking paint to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie honestly was a bummer, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't have the energy to talk about it because it was just like, oh man, really, this is what you came up with.
Yeah.
There were parts that we liked.
Yes. It looks great. I think the production design is the strongest aspect of this movie. They picked this specific town to shoot in because they said it was kind of stuck in time. Carl has a very specific vibe. He's definitely like, he's got the Bob Ross hair, and then he's wearing like 70s outfits.
Yeah,
basically.
it's very 70s.
He's either in like tight jeans or bell bottoms, and he's in like Western shirts that the costume designer hand embroidered herself.
A lot of effort went into
Yeah,
this
a
movie,
lot of
huh?
effort. One of the costuming choices that I liked is like, as Ambrosia is gaining momentum in the station, then like when you first meet everyone, they're also all wearing like sweaters, and they're all in the same color palette that Carl is in. And then as Ambrosia becomes like more herself, like you first meet her and she's also wearing a sweater, but it's a quirky sweater. And then she like starts doing a lot more like pattern mixing and like bigger colors and stuff like that. And then everyone else in the station also starts doing that. I thought that was an interesting choice. I kind of wish that was reflected even farther into like the production design of the station itself. But as far as costuming goes, I thought that was fun. Yeah, and then the pretty strong performances from everyone, like we've mentioned earlier.
Yeah, acting was good.
Yeah.
I will say that like I don't think it was necessarily a difficult movie to act in.
It's great for character actors.
Yeah.
Because scenes just happen.
Yeah.
I don't really feel the need to give a plot overlay.
Nope.
We'll just say this, that like Carl gets pushed out of PBS. He tries teaching. He gets pushed out of teaching because his heart isn't in it. He tries to change a bit. He gets, I think, unnecessarily high. Like, it's a necessary drug scene in a movie. He accidentally lights his studio on fire. Catherine comes and saves him.
Everyone thinks he's dead now.
Everyone thinks he's dead because he cut his hair, so they like find his hair in the studio.
So he must be dead.
Because that's how that works. And then basically he just like, they just don't correct anyone.
And they move away.
And Catherine goes back to school because she was going to move to Albany. And then they were like, they established earlier that she dropped out of college for Carl in their relationship. And then Albany was like, did you not go to college? Yeah. And then they basically revoked the job offer.
Which is just, listen, PBS wouldn't care. If you've been working at PBS for 19 years,
they're gonna value that more.
Yeah, they're like, please don't go. We need you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome. Yeah. Yeah, so Catherine goes back to school. Carl decides to change his art style, and he becomes Banksy.
He becomes Blanksy.
Right.
Yeah, is what they call him.
Yeah.
But yeah, because like he's painting a painting and you don't see what it is, and he's like, "What do you think?" And then Catherine is like, "I think that it should be a girl, and I think this should be red instead of blue." And then you look at the painting, and there's a blue balloon with a little boy watching it fly away, that in the style that Banksy did his. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then she's like, "I hope you don't become famous again." And then it's just like a weird little, and then the credits end with him doing Banksy style paintings on barns.
Yeah.
And it's
another weird tone thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't get what the point of this is. Also, then everyone thinks that Carl is dead, so there's a whole line out the door to get to the museum, and the like doctor guy that runs it walks up one day, and then people are like, how many nargles you got in there? And he like freaks out a little bit because there are no Carl Nargle paintings in the museum, and then the value of the Carl Nargle painting skyrockets, and basically everyone he's ever given a painting to becomes a bajillionaire or whatever.
Yeah. This movie is a movie where the writer was like, "Oh, this would be cool. Oh, but this would be cool too. Oh, this would be a fun. Oh, this would be cool. That would be really funny if he did this. It would be really funny if he ran around the town stealing newspapers from people's yard. That would be good. I'm gonna put it in. Greenlit."
Yeah. One of the reviews that I read for this movie was that it's an SNL skit that just went on for too long. And
yes.
That feels. Yes.
Yeah, I mean every scene, like specifically with the newspaper stealing scene. Like,
that's like the most physical action you see Carl do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's very like
stagnant.
Very stagnant. He does the whisper voice all the time. He's like chill.
Yeah.
Even when he's upset, he's chill.
Yeah.
This is like, he reads that review. He says to Catherine, I've never cared about what people think of me. And then it does the hard cut, like in the trailer, to him stealing all the newspapers.
But they show him steal newspapers from like 8 houses on this street, and it just is too long, and is very much like, oh, we needed some filler.
It's like they also try and do like Edgar Wright editing style to that too, where there's a lot of like, he's changing the gear, he's going with like, but then he goes up like, meh. And I guess that's like part of the joke, is like he's gunning it to every single house, but they're right next to each other.
It was rough, and like I am someone who does like to sit on a scene and leave a scene like while you're there, but this, even for me, I was just like, ooh.
When I was thinking about this afterwards, I kept thinking about how I think you should leave sketches go, where they're very unique. And I think part of the reason why they're so unique is like it will start off with an initial premise, and then basically just keeps yes-anding on top of that. Not even like the initial premise blows up, but like you have, you know, like it starts off with like talking about the pay it forward thing, and then it gets more ridiculous in a drive-through of the 55 hot dogs, 55 hamburgers, like whatever. Like it gets bigger and bigger. Or like the one where they're trying to get his attention and he's just playing this game, the weird egg game, and then it just like stops.
Yeah.
It really felt like this, of like, again, like an SNL skit that went on too long, but in the I think you should leave way of just like, what if he was Bob Ross? What if he was struggling with his identity? What if he was aging out of a demographic? What if we were making fun of PBS? What if he was sexist? What if, like, all of this just on top of each other, and then you don't get any payoff for it, really. Then he just like stays successful in a different way, and there's no real indication of like why his art style changes so much. Like, why then go to Banksy? It just for the joke. Like, there's so many things that happen of like, this happens for a plot reason, not for like a character would choose to do that, or like this happens for a joke and not because the plot makes sense.
It wasn't
it's not coherent.
A comedy enough of a movie for the gags like that to work.
Yes.
Like, it works in a movie like Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story with John C. Reilly.
Yeah.
Like that kind of movie, a parody works, but this wasn't a parody. It was just, I don't know.
Yeah. I forgot to say in the parts we liked earlier, I like the style of the paintings. It's obviously a Bob Ross style, but I liked how they look. I did think it was a little goofy where like the thing that he decides is like the image that sets his soul on fire, or whatever that quote was, is like Catherine in the back of his van when they're about to do it each other, and so he paints her like in his final episode. Like he kind of hijacks the show from Ambrosia, but like she also gives him permission.
Well, no, Tony was doing it at that point.
Yeah.
And because Ambrosia had also kind of quit.
Yeah, it's weird where paint ends at the end, like the show.
Yeah.
But he paints a portrait for like the first time in however many years, and it's Catherine in his van, and that's like the thing that she finds as like the barn is burning, and she finds it in the van and she rescues it, and that's like the image of her smiling in the trailer is looking at that. I don't think the painting was very good.
I mean,
it was a lot of build-up, and like that's fine.
I didn't expect it to be super good because like Bob Ross, like I know Bob Ross because people were like, Bob, could you do a portrait or paint some people? And he's like, I'm just not really good at that, so I don't think that I will.
Yeah.
And so like I think like there's like
that. Yeah.
He's not. I don't know.
It's supposed to be the payoff is like he made the effort to make a change. Because that's another thing that happens earlier is like a woman wins her portrait done by Carl Nargol. He paints the mountain again.
Yeah.
So you kind of get the payoff of like he paints what he truly cares about now. I wish whatever her name was, Bridget, I think. I wish Bridget got her portrait.
Yeah.
And she kind of does because of the Blanksy thing. Like at the end, he paints her on the side of a barn, but like I wish he painted her instead of Catherine.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's not the point, because that was also supposed to be the moment of like the set your soul on fire image, but like she watches your show every day. Like she's just donated $800 to your station.
Not the movie. It's just
bleh. Yeah.
Iffy bits. If you haven't heard enough.
Iffy bits. Yeah. His relationship with women is interesting because they aren't not friends. They're
like they still all work together, but all of the women at the station he has or is in a relationship. And
they all know. And they're all seemingly cool with it.
Yeah, they're just like, it happens.
He basically has a harem.
Yeah.
it's like, I'm pretty sure this movie passes the Bechdel test, but I feel like for the amount of women that are in this movie, it should pass more than it does. It definitely passes because Catherine and Ambrosia have a brief relationship, and it passes when Catherine talks to Beverly about it. And then Beverly and Ambrosia end up together at the end.
And Catherine and Ambrosia also talk about, like, the job and stuff outside of Carl. So, like...
And, like, career advice and
yeah,
stuff.
but it is mostly about Carl.
Everything centers on Carl, which is, again, the point of the movie.
Yeah,
So
I just feel like it should be called Carl Nargle and not Paint.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so the way that, like...
I hate the name Carl Nargle.
I wish it wasn't Nargle.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't Carl.
I don't like I
Bob Ross. One syllable.
Yeah.
Which, like...
Carl Nargle.
Yeah.
I don't love it.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about his relationship with women, because it's not like he's a bad guy. I wouldn't want to work with him, but he's like,
I mean, he's
sorry, but like when you hear about Me Too and like Harvey Weinstein and all these horrible people, then like he's not a villain. He doesn't necessarily need to be redeemed in like because he's committed criminal acts against women or whatever.
He's just someone who thinks he's like a big hot shot, but no one outside of this little town has ever heard of him. Like
he's very regionally successful, which is like a thing.
It's like a town's weatherman.
Yeah.
Being famous.
Yeah.
Like that's
He'd be like, I saw the news, like the weatherman.
I saw Jeff Lyons from Evansville's news station at the Fall Festival. Oh.
I saw Joe Wren at the grocery store the other day. These are very specific references. He's very regionally successful. Obviously Bob Ross is nationally successful. So like I didn't care that much about like them overselling his fame.
No.
But yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. And then the newspaper article being like he's sexist. Like I guess, but like it's mostly Tony saying the bad stuff. I don't know. I like Tony. I couldn't tell if Tony also had feelings for Carl.
Man, who knows? Tony's character was weird. Like it worked because it's Stephen Root.
Yeah.
But if it was just like somebody, then it was just, I don't know.
So
kind of there.
A reporter comes in. She's a woman. She's like, Mr. Nargle, we have an interview. I tried to leave a message on your cell phone, and he's like, I don't know how those things work. And then Tony is like fully misreading the situation, and he's like, he's gonna want to take you to the van, like that's where he takes all of them or something like that. And it's a weird introduction. And then the reporter sees him like interact with the other women, and it's very obvious that he has had a relationship with everyone in the room basically. So then she writes that he's sexist. I think it's just the label.
He uses women.
Yeah. He could still value them.
Yeah, he's not sexist. He thinks they're equals, and so he uses them equally.
All of them. Anyway, yeah, it's just not strong enough on any specific scene for me to like have a specific opinion about it.
It's a weak movie.
Yeah. Ambrosia is kind of implied to be doing or like following the same steps as Carl. So she also starts dating Catherine first.
Yeah.
And then Catherine still has feelings for Carl, so then that's why they break up. Ambrosia, like, I think tries to tell Catherine that she loves her, or was like hoping that Catherine loves her, and then because of Catherine's feelings for Carl, they break up. So then she starts dating Beverly instead.
Yeah.
Who is even so Catherine meets Ambrosia's parents, because Ambrosia is young ?
I mean, yeah, 20s.
Our age?
Older, late 20s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she still lives with her parents. So like Catherine gets out of the car. They're at Ambrosia's place. She thinks they're about to have sex, which maybe they are. And then Ambrosia's parents like walk around the corner.
And they turns out went to high school with Catherine.
Yeah. So
And
it's a weird age thing.
And then when she's dating Beverly, the grandma is there, and then it's revealed that Beverly went to school with Ambrosia's grandma. Yeah.
That's another one of those weird jokes where it doesn't quite land. Where like
it's just like, okay.
Because also when Catherine meets Ambrosia's parents, then Ambrosia's mom is like, I'll make some Totinos to bring in your room. Do you want pepperoni or cheese? And then Catherine just kind of stands there and she's like, pepperoni? Like it's a weird age commentary that doesn't go anywhere, because it's kind of like almost trying to say something about power dynamics, I think, because it started out with Catherine like giving Ambrosia career advice, and then Ambrosia kind of like has the upper hand with everything, of like she initiates the relationship with Catherine. She's the one that also gives Catherine relationship advice to like put herself out there for the Albany job and all this other stuff. So I don't know how to feel about her ending up with Beverly. No. It's kind of like she's taking the relationships more seriously because she is introducing them to her family.
Yeah, but it's still just,
again, weak.
It's weak. It's weird. I don't know. We have about 20-ish minutes before we have to start doing the next thing.
Yeah.
The PBS thing is what I
yeah, so there's some good and some bad / inaccurate bits about PBS. A lot of the technology is outdated. Yeah, that happens.
That happens with PBS, sure.
They do all of their shows live. No.
No, this kind of show.
This would definitely be recorded.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole thing where they're like, not only has Carl been like shoved off of paint, but then his show, like they say they can't even show the reruns anymore because PBS has a thing where they won't show tobacco use, which like, and Carl smokes a pipe in all of his shows. No, as far as I know.
I mean, yeah.
No.
If it did, that would be weird because PBS is, typically the public broadcasting station.
Right.
So it's just like, you can kind of show what you want. There are some guidelines and rules, but for the most part, you can do.
But also, I was just like watching that, and I was like, Downton Abbey, what are you talking about? Like, there's so many period pieces where like smoking was more.
So like
prevalent.
that to me felt like a weird jab at PBS for being like hoity-toity. I don't know.
I didn't think it was a weird jab. I was just like, oh, you don't actually know how.
I mean, one, you don't know how it works, and two, it just like a lot of this movie felt like a weird jab to me of just like how showing like how backwards in terms of just like the technology and just like how old and dated everything is, and it's just like, because it's publicly funded. Like,
that's what happens when you don't have a whole lot of money. Support your local PBS station. Some of those bits were like, that's a little bit true, but then it went to like a place where it's just making fun of it. And then the pacing and editing is weird. We've talked about that. It attempts to do a lot, but bleh. Production facts? Yeah. So it was released April 7th, 2023 by IFC Films. It was produced by Blue Creek Pictures, Silver Lining Entertainment, and White Birch Films. It's a pretty indie movie. It has an hour and 36-minute runtime. It's rated PG-13. It's got a 32% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 57% audience score. It's a 45 out of 100 on Metacritic. And then Post-Track, which asks audience reviews, has an 83% with 33% of audiences saying that they recommend the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. That 83% is higher than I thought it would be. And then the general like critic response, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes is, thanks to a creative canvas that's stretched too thin and haphazardly splashed with far too few colors, most viewers will find watching a painfully dry experience.
That it truly was. Like, I'm trying to think right now what in this episode that we're recording is gonna be good for a clip to share. But so much of this movie was just
Yeah.
that I just don't know.
I also saw reviews that was describing it as a dry and quick comedy. And it was like, I've seen dry, quick comedies.
This was a dry,
Yeah.
slow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to say watching paint dry, but like,
Yeah.
because it's like more visually entertaining than that, but it's not a whole lot going on. And then it's from a 1.5-star review from the Roger Ebert website. It says Ross always preached that there were no mistakes, just happy accidents. A mess like paint, all broad strokes and no point, proves that he wasn't always right.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
my review on Letterboxd for this was something along the lines of, this was not a happy accident. This was a mistake. 'Cause,
Yeah.
yeesh.
Yeesh.
Maybe I'll do something like, real life PBS employees review the movie Paint.
Not clickbait.
LOL. And then we make like the
Good. Yep. Budget for this movie? Couldn't tell you.
I would assume 10 mil.
One website that like is I cannot verify it. One place said $11 million. I have no idea.
My guess was around
Yeah.
that just because of who is in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the box office for this movie is
Good? I bet it's good.
It's $800
$100
million.
million. Oh my god.
$811,739.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's not great. I believe all of that is U.S. domestic.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this was not a movie that was going to make money. I mean, no offense.
I think it could have.
Yeah.
Like the initial premise, there was so much hype about the premise of this movie, and then I forgot when it came out, and that was kind of the general response of like it came out, and then I heard nothing.
Yeah, I just think IFC films tend to be art house, weird, goofy
Right.
things that don't make a lot of money, and so I think like
Yeah.
I don't think they're really expecting to make a bunch of money with this.
But it could have been cool.
It could have done better.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the screenplay for this movie was on Blacklist's most liked unproduced screenplays of 2010.
Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar, Blacklist is like, that's big.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you can submit a thing to Blacklist and they accept it and then they talk about it or get put it on a list
Yeah.
or whatever, like that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's like okay.
That means people like the thing that you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why this one was on there.
I feel like learning that this script came from 2010, I was like, oh, that kind of makes more sense with the way that the women are in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it took 13 years for the film to be made. I couldn't find a specific reason why it took so long. It was written and directed by Britt McAdams. This is his first scripted film, not just his first feature,
Yeah.
but his first scripted film. The other big thing that he worked on was, I think, Triviaville USA, or I think that's the name of it.
Yeah.
Documentary about trivia.
Yep.
And then he just kind of said that the process to make the movie would come together, then fall apart over the years. So I
mean, if I had to guess, and I'm sorry, Britt McAdams.
yeah.
People were interested in the synopsis and the concept, and then they read the script.
And it's weak.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's the type of script where if you read, I don't know, we read many scripts in college. We read
Mhm.
many student scripts in college, and how mostly the men writers, but sometimes the lady writers too, would write women,
Yeah.
and then we'd be like, oh no, this
Isn't how people talk.
This isn't how people talk,
Yeah.
and this is what that script is to me. Of no, that's not.
Yeah.
This is.
I just feel like it still could have been stronger, and like white noise. That's also how people not talk to each other. That
Mhm.
that was the
But it's done
yeah.
in
In a
a
style.
style, yeah.
It's a strong enough style that like you can forgive that. Yeah. It's obviously based off of Bob Ross, but then also the costuming was inspired by musician Gordon Lightfoot. Britt McAdams, his intention was to create the anti-Bob Ross. But he also says that he doesn't want to make fun of Bob Ross, and he loved his show as a kid and respects his legacy. I feel like he specifically said that, like, when I was a kid, like, Bob Ross's show was a safe place for me. I totally get that. That's nice. And he was like, I don't ever remember turning off an episode of Bob Ross. If you fully love that guy and his work so much, I don't think you can successfully make fun of him because you care about him too much. And this movie doesn't take a strong enough stance on anything. Like, they say that Carl is a womanizer, or like he has this like very comforting presence on TV. They don't contrast that enough with how he is in real life. He's the same dude the entire time. Like, you could have had him like do the Owen Wilson whisper and then have him like be a really gruff dude outside of that or something. It's just like any
anti Bob Ross to me wouldn't be someone who still seems like Bob Ross,
who is still a like chill dude. Yeah. Like
Anti Bob Ross to me is Gallagher.
Yeah. So it's just visually very close to Bob Ross, and that's like the strongest thing about it. So there's a 1.5 star review from the Washington Post. It says, there is nothing especially Bob Rossian about Wilson's Carl Nargle, other than his fright wig hair, bedroom voice narration, and propensity for painting the same mountain landscape over and over and over. The fact that Carl continues to dress in bell-bottoms and cowboy shirts with embroidered yokes in the present day, and has apparently never heard of Uber based on a line of dialogue that seems meant to get a laugh, but probably won't, suggests a version of the real Ross that is somehow preserved in amber. Yeah.
That Uber line really bothered me.
Yeah.
It really bothered me because outside of that, this movie is timeless.
It could take place. Yeah, like the clothes are 70s, 80s. The technology is 80s, 90s, whatever. Like, it's all vague enough that it could be whatever. But then she says Uber.
Yeah, so it's like at least
it's the 2020s according to Brick McAdams.
Which why?
Yeah.
Why would you choose to do that? And
all he does is mention cell phones. Like, you could just say that like he's not technology savvy.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Which is like why I kind of like thought the 90s was like still, that's like made sense enough because like there were technically cell phones in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were really called cell phones for sure back then, but I'll take it. But then she says Uber, and it's just like, why couldn't she just been like, my taxi's here,
my ride is here,
my ride is here. It was
I have to go.
It was only an Uber because he said, I don't know what that means, and then she said it means goodbye.
Yeah.
And just like,
yeah,
it's a type of dialogue writing that when you write it, you're like, oh, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
This is good. And I've had those moments, right? You write something, you're like, yeah, that's funny, or that's badass.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have people read it out loud, and it's like, oh no, this is dumb and corny and
we can actually
cheesy.
get rid of
Let's
it.
just cut it.
Yeah.
And then they didn't.
They didn't. Yeah, there's an LA Times review that says tonally Paint, which opens on Friday, may not be a parody, but by legal standards it is. Although Carl does work for a PBS station in the film that stands for Public Broadcasting Syndicate, and because Carl Nargle is fictional, no permission was required from Bob Ross Inc. In fact, the filmmakers didn't reach out, although the company is aware of the film. It, like, for sure, legally, totally in the right. I feel like, again, if you're trying to be this close to Bob Ross and his image, you gotta give a heads up.
Yeah.
You gotta send an email.
It feels like he's trying to be edgy, but chose Bob Ross to be edgy with.
He's trying to be edgy with like the bluntest knife possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bob Ross Inc. Like basically their stance on the movie was like, we're aware of it. We're cool with it. We're basically cool with anything that will encourage Bob Ross staying relevant in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also, Bob Ross Inc. has a hotline to respond to fan calls every day.
That's good.
They said they get about 100 calls every day. But they got so many upset calls from people specifically when the trailer came out saying that Bob Ross wouldn't steal newspapers.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
which like the one line that's also in the trailer of like, that tree is too tall, you're gonna get calls about that. That's another thing that like is kind of true about like some hardcore older demographics of the PBS fans is like, you make an adjustment and people are gonna lose their minds just a little bit, and this is a little bit funny that it's true to life in that way. Yeah, this was filmed in Saratoga Springs, April to June 2021. They had about 20 days to shoot the movie, according to Stephen Root. And then the TV station is an actual station that employees had to leave due to the pandemic. And then that saved the production money since they didn't have to build a set, and it provided some realism.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah. They couldn't find the right van for the shoot until days before filming began. We didn't really mention his van.
Yeah.
Carl's got an old van that's got like a whole mural on the side.
He brings women there.
Yeah. And then they looked like fully across the country for one, couldn't find the right van. Then they found the perfect one a few hours away from their filming location.
Yeah, that's magic.
And then they still had to send the van to get the vinyl wrapping on it because it's got the mural on the side. And then it finished and it pulled up to the shoot like hours before filming began.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So that's what one article called a happy little accident. Yeah, and then if you're interested more in Bob Ross and his legacy now, then there's a 2021 Netflix documentary called Bob Ross, Happy Accidents, Betrayal, and Greed that looks into his image and then like the legality of his image and the implications of like who owns the rights to it.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing of like he wanted his rights to stay within his family as he was dying. He died in 1995, I think. And then his business partners own the rights to his image. It's like they're not doing anything wrong with his image, but his family don't fully agree with like the commercialization that has happened with it. Yeah. And then also from a Roger Ebert review of the documentary, it says one of the doc's many amusing details relates to where his soothing voice came from. A known flirt, Ross reckoned that his predominantly female audience would take to a softer tone that sounded like it came from the other half of the bed. Ross was a touchy guy too, and is described by his director Sally Shank as ornery. So like he liked women, but it seems
but who doesn't?
it seems like he wasn't again a Harvey Weinstein about it.
Yeah.
He was a flirtatious guy as far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the general vibe from watching this documentary of reviews talking about it were like you will feel sad for Bob Ross. His like the image of Bob Ross won't be tarnished of like who he was as a person. It's basically just like everyone loves him so much that they all hate each other.
Yeah.
Of thinking that they don't love him the right way. Which I think is interesting. And then also Owen Wilson's dad ran a PBS station in Texas and his mom was an artist, so like he was pretty down for this role. And then he also watched episodes of Bob Ross's show and then took an art class with a certified Ross artist to prepare for the role.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, good for him for doing any preparation for this movie. Because it feels like a movie where it's like, I'll take the money, have fun on set, and get out of there.
No, he was into it. Yeah, everyone, like, again, all the costuming and the set design and stuff, like, everyone put a lot of detail into this, and I also respect, like, Britt McAdams trying to keep this alive for 13 years.
Yeah.
And it is impressive that you can get that made. I wish that the core of this project was stronger.
Sure.
Yeah. We're a little bit on a time crunch, so I don't know if there's a whole lot else to say right now.
And now I think we just do our rating.
Yeah.
We have a 4-star rating system with 5 options. 0 out of 4 is, oh no. Oh god, no. Please don't make movies. Oh my god, no. 1 is, that was a movie. 2 is, well made. 3 is, an enjoyable and kind of technically good movie. 4 is, Oscar worthy. That's a great movie right there.
Yeah.
I gave this movie shockingly 1 out of 4 because it wasn't like it wasn't bad. It wasn't like bad.
Yeah.
But it was hard to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And the few good things bring it up to a 1, I guess.
Yeah. I also gave it a 1 pretty much for the same reasons of like it again looks great. That's my favorite part of this movie is like how everything looks. Owen Wilson is good in this movie. Everyone is good in this movie. But it was hard to like keep my attention during it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also just like I have ideas for PBS spoofs, and I not to brag, but I feel like I could do a better one.
Yeah.
So we'll see 6 years from now
Yeah.
or whatever, 13 years from now, how mine works.
Yep. So that brings us to the end of that movie. But as always, we like to talk about another movie that we've watched recently because we enjoy movies and we watch movies.
Mm-hmm.
So after we watched Paint, we needed a palate cleanser.
Basically.
And so we watched Elf at Saves Christmas.
Yep. 2021?
2019.
2019.
2019's Elfette Saves Christmas.
Yeah.
You can watch it on Peacock.
You know it. You love it. It took the nation by storm.
I give it a 5 stars on Letterboxd. You can, that's true. You can find it.
Yep.
Because I think it might be the best movie ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Move out of the way, Paddington 2.
And The Godfather and Citizen Kane.
Elfette Saves Christmas is coming to town. It's, basically the corporation greed decides to kidnap Santa and ruin Christmas so that they can make more money because Santa and his elves are making too many things for free.
This is a universe where like Santa exists and also everyone knows that Santa exists.
Yeah, we're fully behind that.
But then also that the corporations and Santa like compete in the same markets where like it's the company, I think it's just like Joy Toys or something. Joytech that is making the pencil phone. But then Santa and the elves also make pencil phones.
Yeah.
So like when a kid wishes for a pencil phone, it comes from Santa and not Joytech. And they're like, everyone loves these pencil phones, but no one's buying them.
Yeah.
So they want to kill Santa.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
There's a mafia. It's great.
The mafia's there.
Santa's played by the dude from The Blind Side, like the kid, like the guy who plays the football kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically the only known actor in that movie.
Yeah.
Like there are people who aren't even credited on IMDb. The movie begins and they're supposed to be in Santa's workshop, I think.
Yeah, they're at the North Pole.
And one of the elves is like, "Oh man, this is the busiest we've been all year." But the room is just like there's like 5. Yeah. And then it like the camera keeps moving, and then it's another elf berating an old elf for not working fast and hard enough.
She's talking to an old woman, and she's like, "I really need you to pick up the pace." And the woman's like,
"Okay, I'm sorry. I'll do my best."
Yeah, it's just like, I think she has a lawsuit for age discrimination.
Yeah. And then there's just some like random other British people and random characters, and then there's like an assassin chasing
fake British accents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an assassin chasing Elfette.
Mm-hmm.
She drives a Mazda, which sometimes it has the logo and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's basically the perfect movie. And if you like porn, but
if you like the plot,
and you're too tired of all of those pesky sex scenes in porn, you just want the plot that happens. So if you just want the good parts, this is the movie for you.
This movie also edges you. It's so horny.
It's great. It's probably my favorite movie.
It's like,
I'm never going to watch it again because my God, why would I do that?
Yeah.
But it's so good.
It like, yeah. There's just like the scene where like Elfette needs a vacation, so she goes to Florida.
Yeah.
So just like immediately elves in bikinis, and then the assassin dude is also into cooking, and he is wearing an apron, but it's a see-through apron.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just like,
he's ripped. This dude is ripped.
Yeah, he was in Magic Mike, or one of the Magic Mike movies,
And Baywatch is like a background.
So like shredded dude, which makes me think like that the clear apron was like he grabbed one on the way to the set and he was like, I know which one I want to wear today. And yeah, there's a weird amount of feet stuff in it. And then there's the scene where like the assassin is about to torture Elfette, and that is the most like,
oh, we're about to get to it.
Yeah.
And we don't. But there's also a device in this, and we're not going to explain it. You just have to watch why it's called this. But there is a device in this movie called the Twinkometer. It's so good.
It's the twinkle meter.
Twinkometer. No,
But
it's the Twinkometer. We're not going to explain it.
Everyone keeps pronouncing
it's the Twinkometer.
it as the Twinkometer.
So if you want to watch the best movie ever made, please go watch Elfette Saves Christmas.
Yeah. If you want to
Hugs and
experience
kisses.
the highs and lows like we did, watch Paint and then
Yeah.
Elfette Saves Christmas.
It's shocking which is the high and which is the low. That
Both visually entertaining.
That's going to wrap up today's podcast. Thank you guys for watching. Please follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, and if you want more bonus content, please subscribe to our Patreon.
Yeah.
If you leave questions and comments on any of our videos or whatnot, we will answer them on our other podcast, VHS Podcast. If you listen on Spotify and you can't, or any other audio device, and you can't leave a comment,
Rate us.
rate us, give us ratings, and
Or follow. I think that also helps out.
yeah,
Algorithms.
and then go. You can just shoot us a message on the old Instagram, and
Or carrier pigeon. Or
yeah, and
email.
we'll do it.
Yeah.
A little heads up on the end of our year plan because we're coming up on the end of 2023. We're doing a two-parter, so 2 episodes, talking about the MCU movies for the year.
Yeah.
Not in Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Just the MCU movies.
So that's Quantumania, The Marvels, and
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be part 1 and part 2, like,
Yep.
each week for the rest of the year. Maybe Patreons. We'll get them at the same time.
Maybe. And then, yeah, we should be back in January, but with the holidays and stuff, we might
Mhm.
take a little break.
Yeah, we might miss a bit, but podcast is definitely continuing, even though 2023
It's coming to a
is not.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes our job easier because we don't have to keep finding new movies.
God, yeah. I keep seeing trailers and I'm like, thank God this is
I
2024.
know. Although I did find one today that was like December 23rd. I'm like, God damn it. Okay, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.